Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Luangpor, is trusting in awareness enough? For example, you state that your mind sometimes goes to planning arts and crafts projects and that you don't allow to go there by saying don't go there. Could a willful act of renouncing arts and crafts completely be more efficient in liberating the mind? Well, if you took that to the logical conclusion, you wouldn't do anything. So if eating food created thought, I'll stop eating food. If talking to you creates thought, I'll stop relating to you. You'd be a turtle. So the idea that, first of all, when I talk about trust and awareness, I'm not talking about right livelihood. I'm talking about this retreat. So please, there are other aspects of life. But think about how humans develop. We develop through adversity. Adversity makes you think. When you have challenges and people who are difficult or health challenges, that certainly makes you think. And yet we learn a lot from adversity. So there is a kind of idea of quietism in I think all religious life, where if I just get away from everything, I'm just really, really quiet, that somehow, and I just really focus on, say, awareness or something like that, that I'll get enlightened. I don't know very many hermits, a couple maybe, very neurotic. They're very difficult people. Usually they have to be hermits because they can't get along with anyone. So I'm more of the mind that taking on difficulties, although that will stimulate thought, it also gets me out of my comfort zone. And we talk a lot. That's a good phrase, actually, getting out of your comfort zone. So when I talk about my own mind, I'm usually exaggerating just to have some kind of example. But say the challenge of making a piece of furniture is that say if I decide to do something which is more difficult than I'm used to, I have to apply a lot of intelligence. I have to understand the material I'm working with, the tools I'm working with. I have to be more careful in the way I'm using the tools. I have to extend my craft further than I'm used to, and so on and so forth. So what it develops in me is a kind of manual intelligence. There's this. I think this is very lacking in education, the intelligence of things. Who was it? Yom Tip was saying that your daughter said, the washing machine's broken. Mom, how do I fix the washing machine? We don't know anything. and there's something very rewarding about, you could fix it, Paul could do it, about fixing a washing machine. And there's something very rewarding about being able to make a lobster omelet. That was stunning. I've never seen a lobster omelet before. Or being able to balance your books in accounting, or there's so much I think we gain through the development of skills, and we have that in the text saying that right livelihood is the development of skills, not just to put food on the table and pay your mortgage. That's important, but also just in the normal development of human character, to take on challenges, to be frustrated, to extend your capacity to learn about learning. I find those um, fulfilling, but also maturing and calming. It's kind of interesting that um, among my peers, fellow monks, um, most of the monks I know do stuff. You know, they don't just spend 18 hours a day meditating. They will go on retreats and do self retreats and so on, but they're publishing books, they're uh, coordinating monasteries, they're building furniture. They're kind of multi-dimensional, and as human beings, we are multi-dimensional. So I think the real thing is, like, rather than eliminating everything, is finding a balance. That seems to me more human. And in terms of the instruction or the recommendations I gave earlier today, um, can I find a way of picking the world up and doing my duties and creating goodness and value in society for myself and others, but also can I put the world down? And that seems to me a more reasonable kind of balance. And so there's many ways of talking about putting the world down, but it's not really a negative thing. It's, oh, I don't want to be involved with the world. That's when you're burnt out and you're tired and you're exhausted. But in day-to-day activity, I have to pick up the world. No choice. Is it a bad thing? Well, it's just the way it is. It's how you pick it up. But then one of the lines I like is this idea of resting in awareness, like resting in awareness or with awareness. That's hard to do, but hopefully this is a kind of idea that in a retreat you can maybe get a hold of. So I'm kind of I seem to be emphasizing background, awareness, knowing change. And there is a way where you can see the mind wanting to pick up the world of defined by worry or by future projections or fantasy, whatever way you pick up the world, and then not going there and just learning how to rest in awareness. And that's an incredibly important part of the spiritual life. Not engaging, not doing anything, I don't know how healthy that is. Over engaging, we all know that leads to burnout. Um, so certainly I've seen in monasteries where monks are overworked and they're frazzled because they're not doing enough meditation. But also I've seen monks who just are very selfish. Leave me alone, I'm meditating. And I've never been really inspired by them. But when I look at Luangpor Liam, Luangpor Cha, Luangpor Sumedho, Luangpor Suchito, Luangpor Amaro, all these, Luangpor Pasano, they all work really, really hard and they're happy beings. They're quite nice to be with. Not because they've lived in caves, but I think because they've engaged in um, real life problems and developed a maturity of human maturity through those kind of things. So parenting, that's a really difficult practice. I mean, I'm not going to take it on, that's for sure. But, just like having responsibility for that, like early on when the thoughts of family came, like in college or something, are you crazy? I don't even know myself. How can I have a child? And so that's a huge responsibility and it's tough. But I think most people learn a lot. It's not easy. So you could say, well, let's all be childless, okay? Then we'd all be monks, and who would feed the monks? So, but to see human complexity and human adversity and human creativity, what is that about? Why can we as humans? We were talking about beauty the other day. What is it? Why do you? And the story was that one monk was with Luangpor Liam, And he said, "What a beautiful sunset." And I think Luangpor Liam says, "Oh, beauty is something you're creating with your mind." So I kind of thought about that. I said, "Yeah, but Luangpor, why did you create a beautiful sala? And why is your stupa more beautiful than the one for Ajahn Chah? Why didn't you just do a concrete thing?" And I have no answer to that, but beauty is something that is a part of, I don't know, evolution, maybe, or whatever. Uh, but to create beauty in the world, say the way the garlands that, like, wherever we go, Yom Vibun gets these beautiful garlands, and then we offer it to a shrine, we offer it to a teacher. That seems to me have value. And then the shrine we make here, or the way you set out the meal, you set it out so gracefully. You don't just kind of, all right, guys, just slop it in the bowl. Uh, and you might say, oh, that's just, I don't know, that's not tough. You're not tough forest monk. But Emil Pacha did that to us. You know, he took all the curries, and you've heard the stories, and fish curry, sweet curry, sour curry, always one huge pot. And then they just slopped it in your bowl like some kind of Dickensian novel. Okay, that was interesting. I could do that. I could do that. But is beauty just for lay people and monks can't have any? So there is that in our lives, which is, this is not canonical, but I do reflect on it. There is that which is creative, that we can create things in the world, creating a retreat for other people to participate in, uh, creating an environment which is appealing. Like, we didn't paint the walls black or just leave them. We could have just left concrete, right? And have a concrete floor, and good enough. It's good enough. Pumak noi. So I do think that beauty is some aspect of mudita, my own sensibility. Beauty can be an attachment. So certainly you can have aesthetic conceits. I don't like that white. That's like, that's too white. See, people do that. I know they do that. That's kind of conceit. But just why, like, why do I look at a blue sky, and if I look at a blue sky, it brings my mind to silence and to a sense of awe, quite often nature. So in the European traditions of spirituality, they have this idea of awe, religious awe. So in the idea of art in a spiritual sense is that the icon stops your mind and brings you back to God. Who's God? If you take God as the silence of awareness, say, then you could see how something beautifully made might make your mind very silent. And that would be the idea of spiritual art, as opposed to a modern painting where the guy signs it and you can't figure out if it's art or not. Um, so mudita usually is portrayed um, in a human relationship way. I'm happy for your happiness, but to this question of, like, why not just eliminate things? I would ask, what is it about our human nature that we can create things? Part of it is dana, right? So the angel group uh, decides to create this beautiful public health thing and this retreat. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of thinking. And then at the end of it, there's this, well, even in the middle of it, there's this great sense of beauty. of beautiful people and beautiful states of heart and beautiful outcomes. So I think that I don't I don't have a kind of clear answer to it, but certainly um, the skills of making things where you cannot, like when you make something, you have to have the understanding of the material you're working with, and that requires a certain application of mind, which is, I think, is a kind of sati. It's a kind of intelligence, and it, for me, it leads to a lot of self-confidence. It's not the confidence of ego; it's more the confidence of maturity, I think. And I think anyone who has done something well, whether you're a lawyer or you're an accountant or you're an entrepreneur or you do really good home economics, there's something about our human life that right livelihood involves not just making money and not just kind of being mindful, but I think being a full grown up. Maybe that's it. I mean, I don't have any fixed answers on that, but I've, like, if I when I take up making something, let's say the kind of last thing I made was a chair. Well, now I'm weaving. So I I have a problem, and the problem is, how does this work? I have no idea how this works. So I look on YouTube and I study and I think and I think and I think a lot. Oh, that's a waste of time. You could be meditating. But I'm also using brain cells, intelligence, and I'm applying that intelligence, so it's application of mind, to a problem. And then I suffer through the not knowing and all of that. And I keep watching with awareness. And what's really interesting is I begin to see I'm learning about learning. I do a lot of that. How do you learn? How do you learn how to do something? And so as one develops witnessing consciousness, then the doing of things and the challenge of the things is actually, um, I guess it's somewhere in the Paramitas or somewhere in human intelligence where you understand something about your own life. So, like with this weaving now, I struggle and there's this, and then all of a sudden it all comes together. Well, it works. Look at that. That's a really nice feeling, and that's a very uplifting feeling. And I would say that's a kind of what mudita is for me. I reach, like, mudita is like all, the Brahma Viharas, the way they work. It's like I rejoice at uh, at someone else's happiness, and I rejoice at my own success. I mean, it's a hard one to do, actually. But when you actually take something on which is difficult and you go through the struggle and all that, there's a kind of energizing of the mind, I would say, a kind of vitality in the mind that you participated in something. You're not just been passive. You've taken on a difficulty. You've got past the difficulties. And I don't think it's egotistical. It's not about my ego. It's just about um, taking on adversity in different ways. So to the person's question, um, is that even a question? Is that even possible, just to eliminate things? Um, I think the answer is, how can I pick things up and develop that aspect of me uh, that other situations wouldn't allow for? So let's say in the last 2 years, I had three guys who wanted to be bhikkhus who are 19. And my question to them is now, well, you've just come from your mother's basement. Do you want to come to my basement? You know what I mean? Like, she pays your rent. Am I going to pay your rent? So I'm going to watch you. And sure enough, I felt that they needed to be in the world to learn something. They didn't need to meditate. They needed a struggle of renting an apartment, getting a job, getting a girlfriend if you have to, whatever. But learn certain lessons in life which the monastery won't teach you because it's all given. It's all there. You know, you'll always get fed, and we'll pay the rent. And so I could see for these young guys, it wasn't actually um, that helpful. But if you took this premise, well, just eliminate everything and just let them meditate, they'll get enlightened. Well, what I found is they got depressed because they didn't know how to be alone. They didn't have skills, and they had restlessness or whatever. Um, Whereas other men come who have had work and have had they appreciate much more the dana that we're given. They have a whole different attitude because they've learned certain life skills and life learnings. Um, More efficient in liberating the mind. Is it all just about like liberating the mind? Is it just like, is that the only, isn't it also about building barami? Building barami is an important concept that we have. Intelligence and kanti barami, Brahma Viharas, all those are very, very important. And those are oftentimes we only learn in situation, in relationship with people and things. So if it was only about liberating the mind, I think it would misrepresent the richness of the Buddhist teaching. When you go to Luangpor Liam, he never talks about liberating the mind. He talks about service. The last three times, he always tells me, like this last time, how healthy are you? I said, I'm pretty healthy. He said, then work hard for the goodness of society. I said, yeah, I agree. So the retreat we do, obviously, there are times we really want to go for it. We want to do a lot of formal practice, but I don't think you can do that all the time. I don't even think it's healthy. To do it sometime, I think, is very important, very interesting, very interesting. So the pattern that I find that seems to work for the kind of senior monks that I know that are healthy beings, right, is take on responsibility, take on duties, work work hard, and then meditate for 2 months. And we can do that as monks. We've got the permission, whereas you maybe don't have so much time to do that. So on the work side, if like in my love of craft and of working, if I was just obsessed with it, I couldn't put it down. I couldn't rest the mind. I couldn't just abide in awareness. Then, okay, you're done. We'll go do a retreat. So that's the sign when we are so obsessed with our work or whatever that our mind just can't slow down, can't stop. And those are more issues of right livelihood than issues on this retreat. That was a long answer, wasn't it? Okay. No one's asked for a lottery number. That's really good. Last year, so many requests. Which one did I have? Let's do this one. Hi, Patricia. You ever remember Patricia from last year? She's ready. She's very grateful for this retreat. So here's his. As I participate online, I remember with great joy being there last year in person. And when you look a little warm from the heat as you speak, I am looking at the first skiff of snow here where I live, and I watch as the leaf-bare trees are being tossed rather briskly by a sharp winter wind, and it all belongs. Anyway, would you please speak more about finding our pathway to staying open and aware when challenged by objects? I understand this to mean we benefit from strengthening our practice with practice that fits for us, so that the ability to move away from distraction, craving, clinging, and personalizing is possible. I'm benefiting greatly from observing what we've been teaching over the past year or so, background and foreground, that the love that is here now in the past and will always be here, These teachings are practices that bring very rapid release of objects and a welcome into this unconditioned, open, aware spaciousness that is always available. This is a practice pathway, I believe, works. Can you add more to this? Not really. Patricia, you're fine. What do you say, right? She's great. Uh, I think she'll teach the next retreat. Thanks, Patricia. Oh, just uh, that the love that is here now, in the past, and will always be here. That's that triple line which I've been trying to sell. I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. And it's actually very powerful. If you get past it sounding a bit smarmy, if you do it, I found if you do it a lot, like I said, after a while, you don't know who loves who or who's saying to what to who. It's just love, 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 love. But it's not sentimental. It's the heart. Well, at least that's how it works for me. I can't say for everyone. It's the heart now being fully accepting of all things at all times, in all situations. So it is for me a very easy upaya to enter into letting go of whatever preoccupation might be there, because it's just a bunch of words. And words are good because, like mantric words, say this kind of mantric, they're very good because they replace the words that are the habitual analysis and judgment and doubting of the mind. So you take one set of words, but you use the same set all the time. That's one of the principles of kind of mantric recommendations. So I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. Uh, is awareness the same as mindfulness? I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. Am I am I really doing the practice right? I love you. I was always love you. I will always love you. That guy over there, he's always snoring. I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. The salad's all gone. I love you. I will always love. You just like drop it off. And really, if you think about it, how it might be useful. Honest. Anyway, I'm glad you're enjoying that one, Patricia. That one. So someone was saying that they have a problem with saliva in the mouth and swallowing, and so they feel self-conscious about swallowing, and they think their swallowing is like tectonic, and everyone can hear it. But first of all, some people just salivate a lot, and you have to swallow a lot. Sorry, I don't think there's any magic bullet on that one. At least I don't know. So just swallow. Seems pretty obvious. But the self-consciousness is an interesting one. Sometimes we're so sensitive to the group that we don't want to interrupt them, that we think swallowing is like an earthquake or something like that. But I'm sure we're all mature enough to accept the sound of swallowing. But actually, you're hearing your own body, which is very loud. Other people can hardly hear it. So I don't really have any way to get past swallowing. But anyway, the other is other things. Do all the objects that we can be aware of fall into sankhara? That is rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana. And please explain, clarify about vijnana. What is it? How it works? So that's one of the kind of confusing words that you get in the five khandas teaching. So the fifth khanda is vijnana khanda, and then you have another way of talking about vijnana, anidassana vijnana, which is the unconditioned. So this is where people will hear, say, maybe Luangpor Sumedho will say consciousness, but he'll be talking about awareness as opposed to sense consciousness. So if you think about it, not too much, if you So I can hear the air conditioner, and then I can see the camera. So I have two sense experiences, sound and visual. And then I can have the tactile feeling of my hands. So each of those is a sense experience. But to know that, like sound cannot know sight, and sight cannot know bodily feeling. To know there is a difference, to know that they're changing, there must be some overriding principle to allow that to take place. And that's what we think of this larger idea of consciousness. Um, if there were not that, then you couldn't differentiate. You couldn't see change because there'd be no way to know it. To hear the changing nature of sound, it seems to me there has to be something unchanging. So then that's how I contemplate. One of the ways I contemplate anicca is, so I listen to sound, and then you have to be listening. So you go to silence, and then I feel my hands, and I notice there a change. So I keep moving between sense objects and sense consciousness, and I see there's something that is unchanging there, and that's puru, awareness, anidasana, vijnana, different ways of talking about it. But why it's confusing, because in the five khandhas formulation, you have vijnana is anicca dukkha anatta, and that to me is referring to the experience of sound, to the experience of sight, as opposed to the knowing, which knows that experience is something coming and going. But it is a kind of constant question that comes up in Theravada Buddhism. So another way to approach that question would be the quote that I like: "There is the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, the unborn." So if you take that as valid, first of all, you have to have faith in that statement. If you think, well, that was just shoved into the suttas, some guy did it later, it's not what the Buddha said. Okay, you don't have that. Some people say that, but I take that as significant. So then my contemplation goes unconditioned, uncreated, unoriginated. And I have to stop and just observe reality. And I think this is important, that quite often we're looking for some enlightenment experience, or we're trying to repeat a fabulous experience we might have had, or we're trying to replicate Luangpor Liam's experience. So we're not really just looking at reality, but you just look at reality, without any kind of Buddhist stuff around it. What right now, experiencing it, and I have that language saying, yeah, it's Buddhist stuff. I know I have that language of, let's say, unconditioned, right? Unconditioned, can't be sound. Sound depends, comes and goes. Can't be sight, dependent on my eyeballs. It can't be the body feelings, that's dependent. It can't be memories, can't be taste. So I'm through that consideration, well, that's conditioned, that's conditioned, that's conditioned. It's like, well, what's left? Knowing. So by eliminating the objects of awareness, which are conditioned, are dependently originated. So we have the word sankhara or sankata and asankata. Sankata is conditioned phenomena, and asankata is unconditioned. So if the Buddha is saying that there is the unconditioned, that's a statement of liberation, really. That is a possibility. Then I just have to stop paying attention to conditions. So I eliminate things. So can't be sight, can't be sound, can't be memory. No, none of that. And what am I left with? I'm back to awareness and or consciousness. Then you can call it consciousness in that way. So that makes sense to me. But it's not just logical; it's also experiential. I'm not just coming to this from a mental conclusion. I'm coming to it from observation, and then that observation, because it's self-evident to me, then I can replicate that knowing all the time, because it's not just a thought thing. It's an experiential thing. So I can come back to the experience, maybe with my emotions. So I'm feeling agitated about something, and I can say, well, yeah, really agitated here, but what's not agitated? And then there's the puru again, there's consciousness, rather than just trying to fix the agitation. And so hence this kind of background foreground metaphor, maybe it works. Non-grasping, abiding as awareness. There's different ways we talk about that. Can we be quiet? Can we be silent? Is there value in silence? Is there value in quietness? Well, I think that when silence is allowed to be known, when you know it, it's the place of resting. But it's also the place of reality, because this experience, it's Dhamma, yeah. And what is Dhamma but silent knowing in all its different ways. And my sense of it is just keep coming back to that as the spiritual practice, but then do good works, make furniture, have some fun, right? Have good friends, like make it a really full life. Uh, that I think is kind of the healthiest possibility. Oh no, there was one question here which I can't answer, but so Suit Supawong has asked the question, what is the implication of the objects and the subjects in Luangpor Viradhammo's talk? So I don't know quite what you're asking. So if this person, Suit, Kun Suit, if you could ask the question again with some more details, some more context. What I talked about it with one of the monks, but I just want to be sure. What is the implication of the objects and the subjects in Luangpor Viradhammo's talk? So if you can try again, and then maybe I'll answer. And I think so. Finally, just that one idea. As the retreat is, I'm sure you're all blissed out now and serene and sabai, and the mind is quiet and so on. But anyway, can you take up that idea of resting in awareness? Is it time to do that yet? Sometimes it's not time. You have to dosu with sleepiness. But just the idea of just resting in awareness, because when you hear Luangpo Sumedho's teaching, he talks a lot about relaxed attention, open awareness, receptive awareness, abiding, resting in awareness. And these are beautiful attitudes that you come to once you've kind of understood the nivarana, the nivon in Thai. What's the tone? Nivon. So restlessness and dullness. You like when I was saying earlier today. Do you have a pathway of attending to restlessness and not being preoccupied with it? That was the pathway, or not being attached to it, not being lost in it. Do you have a pathway of being with the dullness and restlessness and not being lost in it? Do you have a pathway of seeing annoyance or infatuation or doubt? So those are the five nimon. And once you kind of understand, like doubt is really just thinking. So if your mind says, like I was joking, is sati, and is it awareness? Or no, like dukkha, like in English, people argue about the interpretation of dukkha. So is the right interpretation of dukkha stress, like Ajahn Jeff says? Or is it suffering? Or is it discontent? And I say, don't think about it. Wrong day. So sometimes you'll ask yourself a question, very intelligent, and then you think you need an answer, but all you're doing is doubting. So can we let go of thought? And that's the nirvana of thinking. It's just doubting thinking. Like the most, think about like self-doubt when you're not sure of yourself. Am I really up to the mark? I don't know if I'm really good enough. And gosh, I'm not getting anywhere. That's torture. That's just like, if you really want to torture yourself, think about yourself for a long time. It's suffering. So rather than trying to solve those problems in thought, just say, "Oh, thought feels this way." And if you're a doubter, that's quite hard to not just go to doubt all the time. So doubt is an object. Thought is an object. So once you have some sense of the nirvana or the nibbana, you kind of know how not to grasp them. Then you start to understand. Oh, just rest in awareness. Rest in awareness. Rest as awareness. And that's the sort of, I think, progression on a retreat or in a lifetime. And then the whole sense of doing something becomes, well, yeah, there's a lot of sleepiness, better do something. Or actually, no, I can just rest in awareness. And it might be just you go outside and listen to the river, rest as awareness. And it's a really obviously beautiful thing to do, but also very useful. So you pick up the world and then you put the world down and rest in awareness. Okay, I'll leave that for your reflection.